Hi, everyone, and welcome to Being Healthy. What we're doing today is actually focusing on the five elements that we've been doing. So far, we've done three of them. We're now doing earth today. And then next week, we'll be doing water. So, welcome, welcome. I have a lot that I'd like to share with you today, as do our co hosts. So, right now, I want to speak about why we're doing the element of earth before we do water. Really important. So, when it comes to human life, and I'm going to put the information down here, some people believe that the five elements play a role in the balance of energies in the body, contributing to everything from our personality traits to our health and well being. And this is why I focus on them. So, the five elements are pretty much used in almost every different style of traditional Chinese medicine, and to some extent to diagnose and differentiate between different illnesses, different dysfunctions, and people. So, to understand the body and all of creation through the Ayurvedic lens, all organic and inorganic matter in the universe is made up of either ether, air, fire, water, and earth. So, these five elements demonstrate how all aspects of human health like diet, like movement, and emotions are interconnected with nature and our environment. These elements are not only found, some of the Chinese medicine, they'll only have four elements, by the way. And these elements are not only found in the external material world, but also are believed to be part of the human body. And that's why I think it's important for these to be taught in schools and in every single culinary arts course. Anyone who's a chef needs to know about these because a person's unique abilities, moods, emotions, and personalities are said to be determined by these elements. Now, why the element of earth today? Really important. All the other four elements combine to form the dense, very dense element of earth, and it's the densest of them all. So, ether provides space to exist. We've already done that. We talk about spaciousness. Air provides movement. We've spoken about that. And the fire we spoke about last week manifests in the form of energy. Now, next week we will be doing water. And why? Because water acts as a bridge between the gaseous states, which are ether, air, and fire, and solid state, which is earth. Earth is the most solid. And thus, the earth element represents the solid state of all the four elements. They all come together in a solid way in the element of earth. So, the solid structure of our body, such as our bones, cartilage, or muscles, or tendons, or skin, or nails, and or hair, are provided by this element that we call earth. And earth itself is a feminine element that nourishes and protects. And this is one of the reasons why the earth is also referred to as Mother Earth. So, this is really important what we're doing today because the earth is part of the cooling, the stabilizing, the dense, hard, rough, dull, heavy, dry, gross, and clarity, as are some elements that can be related to it. So, a unique quality of this element is that it is the only element that helps you to smell. Really important. The earth element manifests itself in the form of loyalty, faith, a sense of responsibility, and also ethics in human beings. It symbolizes prosperity, fertility, stability, orderliness, groundedness, sustenance, creativity, physical abundance, nourishment, solidity, dependability, security, permanence, introspection. It just goes on and on and on and on. It's incredible what it does. So it also symbolizes security and permanence, dependability, intuition, introspection, and wisdom. So, one of the main reasons why I wanted to speak about, and you'll hear me in future episodes also of the Being Healthy live stream, speak constantly about the element of the earth, because anything that you can smell, see, touch is being governed by this element. And it's the most physical form of earth that you can see is the earth itself that we live on. So let us look at the other symbolic meanings of the earth element. With the help of the water element, the earth element also insulates the body by forming a layer of fat. And even though the dominant element of all the elements is water, the earth element provides the stability and structure to the tissues and bones for this element to make all our organs work properly. This is why it's critical to know about these elements, everyone. Really, really important. Also, in traditional Chinese medicine, the shift in seasons from summer to autumn, which us will be experiencing soon, is the season for the earth element. So this season is a damp season where we need to nourish the earth element and also focus on our digestive system. This is the time, if you're moving from summer into the autumn, to focus on your digestive system. And the organs that the earth governs are the spleen and the stomach. We could go into this for a while, but I do not wish to do so because I really want to focus today on our wonderful co-hosts, and I see one of them just joined. And hello, Sabina. Hi, hi, hi. And I wanted to also speak about the fact that even although the earth element is the feminine element, we all of us possess within us part of the feminine element. And that's why it's so important for men, and especially rearing boys, to take them out into the woods and into the wild and constantly have them renew this element within themselves. If girls are lacking this, we also see a huge difference in that they feel very unstable, they don't feel grounded, etc. So, Pete, you have a son. Come on in and tell us how this element affects you.
It makes me feel like it's where I belong. It's it's in all honesty, the woods feels like it's my home. And what brought me close to the woods is when I had my son, and I just felt this importance, this urge, this sense of great depth of feeling within myself to nurture him and myself together at the woods. And that would be our playground, that would be our place of learning, of just having fun. We'd be feasting on lots of fruit in the trees. It's brought a lot of joy and love into our lives, and it's created a beautiful bond between me and my son, created a beautiful bond between me and the trees, and between my son and the trees. Like, we always hug the trees, talk to the trees, interact with all the creatures that live on the trees, all the mushrooms that grow on there, all the acorns and the fruits. It's a truly beautiful place to be. And that's where a lot of I say real educations come from. Wisdom, what you touched on about the element of earth, what it provides. Mother Nature has a lot of wisdom. If we can sit and watch and observe and absorb all that, it's very enriching and nourishing. And early on in my son's education, I didn't send him to a traditional school. It was important for me to bring him up, educate him myself, and especially being in an outdoors environment, it's so more inducive. And it's liberating, it's beautiful. It really does feel like home.
Thank you for that. So, also, one of the things that I wanted to focus on today is with the element of earth, is something that actually Herb just talked about. The element of earth is really important to our health. All the elements are, every one of them. However, The reason why I'm saying this specifically today is because I often get people who come to me for consultations, and one of the first things they always say to me, almost every single person has either said to me, and my diet is very healthy, so I don't understand what the problem is. Or there's this one person who said to me, I have a very clean diet. I don't need to change it. I just need to know what's going on. And I thought, could you tell me what your clean diet is? I was shocked. There's nothing in there that I thought was clean. And I would, every time I ask somebody, what is this healthy diet you have? And I asked her, what's your clean diet? It's always something that has been processed. And I asked, what is your favorite part of this diet? What's your favorite food in this diet? And it's always something that is processed. And my response is always, but I asked you if you about your diet. I didn't ask you to judge it. You told me you had a healthy diet. And with this person, she said, I have a very clean diet. I said, I didn't ask you that. I asked you what you ate. And you responded this way. And when I asked you what was your favorite food, you told me something that doesn't grow. I don't see any of the elements in there. This, I see the elements instantly in there. Just as Herb just was talking about, every fruit has the element, all the 5 elements in there. This is a kiwi. This is a mangosteen. For those of you who've had the amazing opportunity to try mangosteens, I know you will be reveling at the sight of this. This grows. This has all the elements in it. And oh, the smell is incredible also. Because of the element of earth, I can smell it. This has all the elements in it. If you're eating anything that's been processed, you have none of the elements in there. You are made up of all the elements. And that is why you're ill. Because you're lacking. You're not reproducing the elements in your body, and it's made up of that. And you need to constantly be replenishing these elements in your body. This is why we dedicated 5 whole live streams looking at the 5 elements. Because if you take anything away at all from watching any of these live streams and realize that you're made up of all of these elements and you need to constantly replenish them, and there are many ways of replenishing them, the most important of which I think is what you put in your mouth. So this is the element of earth, and it doesn't have, you can see that it's very dense, extremely dense. The element of earth is the most dense. So you want to surround yourself with more elements of the earth, things that not have been pre-manufactured by humans, but come straight out of the earth. This comes straight out of the earth. This comes straight out of the earth. If you're looking to have candles in your place, make sure you use things that come straight out of the earth so you can replenish that. So Lisa, tell us about you living very close to water. We're going to be talking to you a lot next week. Tell us about that, Lisa.
Well, I'm gridded up. My crystal grid is activated right now. I have so many crystals. And I know I'm drawn to them because, like you said, they represent the earth and they ground me. They make me feel connected. They make me rooted because I tend to be flying around in the air and swimming in the water. So it's really important for me to really remind myself to be rooted on earth, to be grounded. And so I think just having crystals or, that kind of stuff really helps.
Sabina, come on in. You live near the forest. You're very much involved in your earth.
Yes, I live in the middle, deep in the forest, surrounded by hundreds of acres of land, of just trees and waterfalls and creeks, like very pristine, completely off the beaten path. So this is like a contrast because I used to live in Manhattan, New York City for almost 20 years. And actually I relate to your story, Herb, I don't know how to pronounce it. I guess you're British, so it's herb. Yes, when my son was born, he was born in Manhattan. I was called. I felt nature was calling me because I didn't want to grow up my child in the city. And I was called to nature when my son was I think he was 5 or 6. We moved. Finally, it took a while. I mean, the calling came early. I just didn't take the action steps. But once it was clear, I have to go. I have to leave New York City. My dream was to live in the forest. That was my first location. So we moved in a little, not even little, it was quite a big house at a lake with, at that time was 5 acres of land. By now it's 500 acres of land that I don't, they belong to someone else. I just rented the place. But I felt myself expanding in the land I wanted to live. But my son was always, when he was little, he was always walking around barefoot outdoors, having conversation with the insects and all the animals. And he was just an outdoor little boy and climbing trees. So it was, and I also didn't put him in the regular school system. He actually went to Waldorf education, Rudolf Steiner, since he's in kindergarten. And so he was thriving. Sadly, since he's 17, as a teenager, he doesn't listen to anything anymore that I say. He actually does not want to go into nature. I have to force him daily. This is like one of the tasks. I have to make sure every day he goes outside. And there's always resistance there. He just wants to be indoors at a laptop and doing video games. So that has sadly changed. And he's 17. He doesn't listen to me anymore. But I'm sure something sticked because I made sure he's involved, immersed into nature several hours every day. So the foundation is there. I'm sure at some point it will seep back in. Right now, he's just a little bit diverted on a different path. And so are all his friends, even the kids that grow up in nature here. It's just very sad to see that. All the Waldorf kids, they don't want anything to do with Waldorf anymore. They're all addicted to their devices. Yes, but I live deep in the forest, but I do miss the water. My last place was actually at a lake. I lived at a beautiful house with a deck over a lake, also hundreds of acres. I always had amazing properties. I just manifested like amazing places, and always in nature, whether it's at the lake, whether it's in the forest, and always with view to the mountains or surrounded by mountains. So I always was surrounded by the elements for the past 10 years, and I can't imagine it any other way.
So I agree with you that, and I've seen the same thing, that a lot of children that I knew who were actually schooled, the Waldorf schools, that they end up going the very opposite route when they get older and they're on their own. And here's what I've noticed. Eventually, they all come back. So I think you have given him the foundation that he needs. And from that, once we give the children the foundation, eventually they will return. So your child is very young still, Herb. So you also do something with him, which I think is really absolutely incredible. You are a professional cyclist and you take him cycling with you. Do you find that that gives you a very stronger bond?
Yeah, most certainly. It's a shared activities, shared interests, and every time we go out, it's always an adventure, it's something new. And yeah, I really feel for Sabina what she shared about her son, like setting the foundations, and to see him being stuck inside and on the screen. I feel that as well, and it's like an ongoing kind of battle, I suppose, in life. Like, because I'm starting to see bits of it with my boy. Like, I've noticed there's a little bit more resistance in him wanting to go out on the bike because he wants to be distracted by other things, because he's been influenced by outside forces and friends. So it is like a commitment and dedication to get them out. But once he's out, like he loves it. He doesn't want to come home. So it's yeah, sometimes it's a bit of a bit of drama, a bit of fun to get him out. But once we're out, it's truly beautiful, and we're out all day. So at the moment, we're going around riding together on our bikes, looking for plum trees, wild plums, and we're just feasting on those. And recently, he got together with his friends, so I got them all out on their bikes and gave them a tour off road around the area where I like to go, certain routes, and got them all involved in picking plums and picking blackberries, which was a first experience for them. And it was so beautiful and enriching to see them thoroughly enjoy themselves and enjoying all the wonderful fruit that Mother Earth provides us. And they went home with bags of plums, and they was wanting them to have for dinner. And it just it's very, very touching to see, because I wish I had someone like that to guide me in my life, to show me the beauty of nature. So yeah, our bond is good, and it's still growing as well, you know. And I think all these challenges that we go through just strengthens that bond, deepens that connection. And yeah, it's not to get caught up in it. Oh, it's not working out how I want it to be or like it to be. It's just flow with it. There's always a way through it, and yeah, to be creative.
And I think the fact that you actually included his friends made it easier as well. That's one way, but most definitely. And also the whole idea of picking your food, going directly into the earth and seeing where food comes from. I remember when I lived in New York City, I found out that there were a lot of school children in New York City that had no idea that oranges and apples came from a tree. And I thought that was criminal. At first I thought it was a joke, and then it was in the newspapers, and I thought, no, this cannot possibly be true. And I didn't realize, because New York's Manhattan is surrounded by water on every side, but they'd never left their area in which they grew up in, so they haven't seen the water. And it's kind of hard, Sabina, not to see the water in New York City. But they didn't. And so I think it's wonderful what you're doing. Sabina, go ahead, please.
Yes, I mean, there's water all around Manhattan. It's basically an island. Yes, and there are also, there's lots of parks. Yeah, so there is some nature, but the true nature, that's what at the beginning I was taking my son to parks, and I thought that's a way to expose him to nature. And at some point realized that's not really true nature. And there's a lot of activity in the parks. Oh, I have light is coming in. And so yes, that was kind of the drive then to go into real nature. And that's what made me go upstate. It's about 2.5 hours north of New York City. And once I was there, why didn't I do this before? So it took me quite some. Yeah, I always thought I wait, maybe next year. And it was actually my partner at that time. He said, Sabina, let's just go and check out some houses. We checked out 2 houses, and the first one was, we had a vision board of the house we want, and it had like an A shape with lots of, with floor to ceiling windows, lots of light, lots of glass, and at a lake. And we saw exactly that house. And at that time, the area here was, now the prices here are insane, but at that time it was actually cheaper than living in Manhattan in a smaller apartment. So we just rented the house very spontaneously, and we made the move, and I've never looked back. And it has definitely transformed my life, because I was always stressed out living in Manhattan. There's always, the energy of Manhattan is always about doing. Everyone is chasing and doing, and it's all about, career, money, business, getting things moving. So I was always like this moving, shaking person. So I was always on the go, and I always felt stressed out. And then what I learned when I came to the forest, to actually just be and to listen and take in the sounds and the visions and the scent of nature and the music of nature. And that allowed me to really ground. And actually, it was instrumental in me learning who I truly am, because I thought I'm this certain image of myself, what I want, and mostly like chasing shiny objects, as we all do at some point. And that actually stopped. I learned to just be with what is. And it was huge healing. Like for me, nature was my biggest medicine. It actually was part of the healing from heartbreak, healing from not knowing who I am, and healing from so much childhood trauma, mainly by being in the forest and being at the lake. So these were my medicines, the forest and the lake.
Thank you for that. Actually, Sabina, that is all, everybody, that is our medicine. You know, I think when we go to see doctors, they ought to prescribe, you need some more, this is what is done in Ayurveda and in Chinese medicine. You need more element of air. Or what's missing for you over here? This is the element of ether. And that is how medicine ought to be. And yet it's not. So we have to do it for ourselves. And then we can influence the medical model to shift, because these are ancient traditions who still persevere despite all the so-called scientists who are simply finding out that what these ancient civilizations did, that is truly where they get their healing. If you do not heal by incorporating all the 5 elements and finding the balance between them, that's the only way to heal. You cannot expect healing without that. And that's why we have, I think, so much addictions, so much dependency, because we're dependent on outside factors rather than looking within and see which of the elements are missing. And I know for you, Herb, what you did was you went to food and you changed your diet. Could you explain about that, please?
Yeah, it's changing my diet was well, a huge part of my life. It changed everything. It literally made me more receptive to life and gave me a deeper connection with nature, with the earth, as part of my healing journey. Exactly what Sabina shared, it's medicine for me, like going through a heartache and massive shifts and identity crisis in life, and connecting with the trees and the woods was really healing. And what helped facilitate that was changing my diet. Like I mentioned before on here when I shared my story, feasting on lots of fruit, cutting out all the processed food, my senses just become so much more heightened. I just become so clean. And when I step into nature, into the woods, I'm just, all the colors of the leaves and flowers are so much more vivid, and my sound, hearing is so much more heightened. Really listen to the birds tweeting away and the wonderful fragrances, and it's just like heaven. I've never ever experienced this in my life before, and I attribute it to having that huge shift in my diet, cutting out all the processed food and cooked food, and being on living food, on fruit. It's truly beautiful, and that's why I always encourage everyone to do this. Go out in nature, go out to the woods and feast on fruit. Take your fruit with you and enjoy it in these beautiful places. It becomes real nourishment, not just for the body, but for your heart, for your soul, for everything. It's and it's free. It's available for all of us. We have access to it. We don't need to distract ourselves and harm ourselves and all these other things, chasing things, trying to fill that void when this beautiful enrichment is available for us.
Yes, I agree about the fact that we actually get or have our senses heightened, all our senses, because if you've been following us all this time, everyone who is watching this right now, you'll realize that every time we mention which the elements, each of them are tied to a certain organ and also to certain body parts. And so that is how you heal, is by looking to which one are you deficient in, which one of the elements you're deficient in, and how do you raise that energy there. So when I lived in New York City, because Sabina was talking about New York City, and people used to say to me, but you've got the parks here, you got Central Park, you got Washington Square Park, and I was like, what are you talking about? Those are not parks. I said, have you been to England? Have you been to London and see what a park really is? No, those are parks. I lived in Paris. Those are parks. Fontainebleau Park, all these parks, those are parks. I said, those are not parks. I said, that's some greenery, but I have to go through filth and yuck and concrete to get there as well. And I don't find anything healing in that. And when I get there, it's always overcrowded, and there's disastrous aspect of how we live our lives by ignoring other people, of people who are homeless and on drugs living there. And I thought that just showed, and I was glad that they were there, because I thought that would be helpful for them to heal as well. And I think we took everybody who was on drugs and homeless, and we take them into the woods instead. And we replenished each of the elements, help them to replenish each of the elements. I think we'd see a huge drop in delinquency, in addictions, and also in mental illness. Lisa, you grew up on an island in the Southwest United States. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was just wanting to run back, just listening to the talk about the forest, because I was very lucky to have the forest around me, to be surrounded by trees, and literally when I go home, I can't stop talking about the trees. And it's funny because my mother was born and raised there, so she's lived there 80 years. She's never moved away like I did. And she's always talking about, Lisa, you're so into the trees. And it's just funny how people are different in that way. Like, it calls my spirit, it activates me. I always want to go out. We have a grand forest, which is ancient old growth in the Pacific Northwest, and I can walk, not see a human. And it's truly, it just is really a healing experience. And like everybody was talking about, it's we don't need anything but nature, really. I mean, community, of course, but nature is such an elixir, and it is so underutilized. I think that's why mental health is so challenged, as people are removed from their wildness, their spirit, their inner life. They're used to looking outside of that. And when you go into the woods, even though it's stimulating and beautiful and healing, there's a awareness that we are part of something bigger, like our spirit finally can be listened to without all that noise.
Absolutely, yes. And one of another thing too that I think is that the body knows. The body knows. So again, when I was living in New York City, I remember walking down the streets of Manhattan. And Lisa, could you? Yes, thank you. And walking down the streets of Manhattan and craving, literally craving dirt. I wanted to eat it. I mean, I craved eating it. And it became such a huge problem for me that I just decided, I told all my clients, I'm sorry, in my classes, I need to go away for a week. And I went up to Canada because I just needed to be around real dirt, not artificial false dirt. Because I was literally craving it. And I realized that this might be one of the problems why every time I'm in Manhattan, I feel such a huge depletion of all my energies that I never feel otherwise. So I moved out of Manhattan after that. I just went to Forest Hills, which was really gorgeous and really beautiful. It was modeled after an typical English country village by the English. And it was just absolutely gorgeous, tons and tons and tons of old trees. So Sabina, what was the biggest difference from you the first day that you were in the forest?
The biggest, well, it was, not hearing garbage trucks and sirens. It was actually quiet. Well, there were some sounds, but the sounds of nature, but it was still, stillness in the air. I have never experienced that in Manhattan, because at some point you actually get used to all these noises and sounds, like drunken people, and every morning at 5 or 6, the garbage truck. And all of a sudden, none of that was there. And it was just the stillness that I felt, and it felt so good. And I noticed my sleep quality improved. I was actually sleeping so peacefully. And then waking up to the birds, is such a beautiful, I still to this day enjoy waking up with the birds. I always hear them. And so I don't need an alarm clock. I hear the birds. And also the air quality. It was just so different. I noticed immediately an improvement. I mean, when I washed my hair in Manhattan, always I had to wash it every few days because there was so much dirt coming out. And being up here, I actually started to less and less wash my hair, interestingly. And they wouldn't get greasy. There was no smell in my hair. Even not washing them for a week, I couldn't do this in Manhattan. So also my skin was not as dry as in the city. So I felt many improvements. And overall, my mood, I had more creative inspiration. There were actually so many changes. Just everything shifted, and being able to get fresh water. I would go up the mountains to a spring and collect my own spring water. And in Manhattan, we had a filter, but it was still not, using filters is still not perfect. So I was actually get the water from Mother Nature. So there were many, many benefits, and that just kept increasing. The more time I actually spent there, the more I realized, wow. And they always, why didn't I do this earlier? Why? It's like, why? What kept me so long in the city? And then just my whole outlook on life shifted. I was actually when I lived in Manhattan, I was working in the entertainment industry in fashion and film. And when I come up here, I was like, I suddenly, I had to first let go of all these identities I had and really look, who am I truly? Why am I here? I really contemplated that question. Who am I and why am I here? And in Manhattan, it was clear. I mean, my goal was to go to Hollywood, be a famous filmmaker and screen actress. That was my goal. And suddenly that was not important. So I had to first go deep within myself, really look, who am I truly? And that was sitting in nature. And I was going deep into fasting. Once I always fasted. I've been fasting for, I would say, 30 years. I do regular fasting. But when I did fasting and sitting in the forest, that just amplified it. And that was actually got me on that path. It's like I'm really valuing health and vitality and high states of energy and longevity and youthening and all that. I've always been living that. But then I suddenly thought maybe I can use, all that I have learned for so many years and actually create a business. And that's where, all the ideas kept coming in. I can create a business out of this.
This is such an incredible testament to the 5 elements, and how, even if we have a vision of who we think we are and what we are, once we are endowed with the 5 elements in equal balance, all of this shifts. Everything about this shifts. So, Herb, you right now, you just had a move and it's a temporary move. But tell me, when you go to London on your midnight journeys to get fruit, you're scavenging fruit at midnight in London. Do you feel the difference in your energies in London and when you get back? Because you live in the English countryside.
There's a huge difference. A huge difference. It's such a hustle and bustle when you get there, get to the market. It's like, obviously it's a hot spot, isn't it? Everyone there, all the trades, all the businesses are there. It's like the forklifts, like beep 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 beep. It's just like constant noise. So yeah, it's a vast difference. And yeah, coming back, it's like, oh, crikey, what was all that about? But you can have fun with it. But I feel like I need to be charged up first. So it's like we've touched on here, like going to the woods. It's a place not just for healing. It's a place of nourishment. It's a place I find that I get charged up. The more time I'm at the woods, it's when my true, authentic being shines through. And when I step back into the world, into society, I'm able to flourish, and carry on that vibration that I picked up from there. But yeah, it's always it's entertaining to me now going into London. It makes me laugh. In the past, before I healed myself, it was very created a lot of anxiety and stress and tension for me. Because especially when I go so late at night, I'm tired. You'd think I'd be more susceptible to it. But yeah, it does really go a long way. Nourishing myself in the daytime or in the morning at least, going to the woods and then taking that fragrance with me and sharing it with others. I like to spend time with everyone there, and just like anyone that's on edge or is like rushing, I always like try and like calm them down, like tell them to relax and chill for a minute, you know, and tell them to hug a tree.
And what's it like living in the English countryside on a
Oh,
permanent basis?
I love it. It suits me down to a T. Because I grew up in London as a kid and in my teens, and I moved away from there because yeah, it wasn't a very safe place for me to be in. And coming to the countryside, it's just a whole another lease of life. I actually had that silence for the first time, that clear open space, you know, you can see across the water, see across the fields, the hills. I'm not surrounded by, you know, concrete buildings. That, yeah, just how invigorating that is, just to see miles and miles at times, you know, and the smells, and even like the farm smells. It's appreciated, you know. It's a reminder of being in the country.
You see, this says to me, Sabina, you're talking about your son going in the opposite direction, right? From what you brought him up, how you brought him up with nature and all the elements. And then Herb did the opposite. He grew up in the city, and that what was lacking was the harmony of all the elements, and he craved that. So you see, there's hope. We tend to crave what we don't know, what we don't have. And Lisa, you yourself, you actually and Sabina have in common that you both left home to pursue the exact same path, but you're not doing it now. And please unmute yourself first.
Yes.
Lisa.
Yes, I found that fascinating that we had that in common. Yeah, when I came here, it's like the reason why I came here was, I think, to really connect with who I was. And the creativity of this area, of course, is what drew me here. But what I found is what really activates me is this water. Having the ocean and being around it is incredibly healing for me. And you're right. We want to experience the opposite of what we grew up with. I think that's part of the differentiation process, essentially. Like, you know, I grew up on an island. My family grew up there. I was the first in my family to leave, to go on my quest, to, you know, find my way in life. And I wanted to assure you, Sabina, that, you know, even though your son has moved away from that, you instilled such beautiful roots and gifts in him. And he will, like you said, come back to that at some point. Because I know I did. I used to resent going out in the woods with my dad. He was really into nature. And when I got into college, I started doing it all over again with him. And I really found such joy, peace, and so many vital lessons. And I'm so grateful that I had that time with him, because that's really where he was happiest, was in nature.
So you see, Sabina, there's hope. There's hope after all. So I'm just going to speak a little bit right now about the fact that the element of earth is solid, very solid, as you've seen. Water itself is liquid. Fire is very transformative. Air is gaseous. And ether is actually the field in which matter appears and the potential from which it stems. So we all need these in abundance. I'm going to ask the last question of my co-hosts. Which of these elements do you feel is lacking in your life when you don't feel well? Is it always the same one, or does it change for you? Starting with Herb.
So, which element do I find is lacking in my life when I feel unwell? Is that the question?
Absolutely, yes.
Wow, you've thrown me a bit there. I'm gonna have to pause on that one. Okay, that's a great question. One I haven't even asked myself or even considered. So I'm on the spot right now.
Okay, you consider it, and we'll come back to you because this is the number one question I ask all my clients.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great
Otherwise, how can
question.
I help them? How can I help them?
Exactly. I can only go by most recently. Probably space, I say. Maybe, yeah, maybe space. And I'm coming into a new space, creating more space in my life. So yeah, I reckon that's probably it. Space being ether, I'd say. But I think there's little bits of elements of everything. So I wouldn't say there's like one major element. I think there is like an imbalance, I'd say, you know, because I do notice sometimes where I'm not in contact with going to the woods as much as I'd like to be. I get distracted or caught up doing too much work or doing things for others, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I've forgotten about myself, and I feel it. So yeah, I'd say maybe between probably the space would be most recently, and before that it probably wouldn't have been enough time in contact with the earth, which I've made up for because I've been barefoot so many times lately. I've been running around through fields barefoot, racking up a lot of kilometers on my feet. So that's been enriching and powerful. So yeah, it's funny how life works, that it's kind of balanced itself out, that I'm finding myself in. Yeah, that's what I can say on that at the moment. Thank you for a beautiful question. It's wonderful. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. It's a question which I think we need to ask ourselves on a regular basis every Saturday. Every Saturday when I fast, I ask myself that question.
Okay,
And
that's interesting.
I think it's important that I do it while I'm fasting because then I really will get to the truth. Lisa, same question for you, please.
That's a beautiful question, Dorit. It's really good. I would say Earth for me, because especially when I was flying all the time, I really didn't feel grounded. And I think the Earth invites me to ground myself. And so I would say definitely the area that I would say I'm deficient in when I'm out of balance is Earth energy for sure. So this is the perfect metaphor for what we're talking about right now, is how important that earth element is, especially if you're deficient in it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sabina. You're right now surrounded by all the elements. So when you do not feel well or you feel out of sorts, which one is usually the one that's missing for you the most?
I would say water. Even there's a waterfall behind the house. It's a small one, and there's a creek in front of the house. But when I don't feel well, what I'm missing is the immersion, like deep immersions in water, like really floating in water. So especially in the winter, that is, even sometimes I do cold plunging, it doesn't make up for that. So in the winter, I need to go somewhere where there's an ocean. So usually every winter I go at least twice to Florida and sometimes to Mexico, Costa Rica, but I go somewhere where I can actually float in the ocean. And when I drive down to Florida, it's a 16-hour drive, and I drive usually within 2 days. And the first thing when I arrive there, I go somewhere where I can park at the ocean, and I just jump in and I float in I like soak in it all the way in. And I feel immediately, all the stress and whatever I'm going through is released. So yes, for me, it's the deep immersions in water, in warm bodies of water, not cold ones.
And yet you do plunges. You do take ice baths as well?
I do it, but I dip in, but I'm not, being in there soaking for like 2-3 minutes. And it's I don't find it enjoyable. I find it, once I come out, I feel really great, but I don't like cold water to begin with. I'd rather go somewhere where it has waves, where you can jump and be playful. So that's the kind of water I'm missing here. The ocean, it's more like, ocean I'm missing. And yes, because the water here, to be honest, it is clean, but it is still looks grayish. And for example, when I was in Europe, the water was so like pristine. It was like turquoise, and like it just had these beautiful colors, which I don't see here where I am. So it's a different level of water that's calling me.
Yes, actually, that's quite an astute and perceptive response you just said about the water where you are in upstate New York, because it has been found to have a lot of the poisons and toxins that are put into the water in the United States. And so it's not exactly the cleanest and purest water there is, which is so sad. Lisa, you have the same exact question.
You mean about the water itself, or because I did talk about where I was deficient?
Yeah. But so you grew up in Bainbridge Island with a lot of water, surrounded by water as well.
Right.
And yet you said to me, the reason why you're here in Los Angeles is water, but it's a different kind of water, is it?
It is a different water. Yeah. Thank you for connecting those dots and helping me better understand the question. Yes, they are two different experiences. The ocean for me is wild. It's, even though there's times out here where it's like a lake. I mean, it's flat. People are always shocked by that. The waves, I don't have huge waves here. There are surfers, but it's just, there's something about it. Where I grew up is beautiful. The Puget Sound, it's gorgeous. It just has a different experience. They are both unparalleled in their beauty. And it's interesting that we talk about this, that I went from a water-based place and then I was craving the water because I used to live in the valley, which is, if for those of people that are familiar with LA, it's there's not water there. There's a river, but when I finally took care of myself and I moved to the ocean, it literally changed my life. I didn't realize how important water was for me until I got here. And wherever I go in my life, there has to be water, for sure.
Wow, that says a lot. So next week we will be speaking about water, and Blythe will be back with us because she actually did her dissertation on water. So it'll be very interesting to hearing from Blythe next week as well, and she's very eager to join us for that. And Lauren Whitman will be with us as well, speaking about the element of water. Look very much forward to having her as our guest host next week. So I'm trusting that those of you watching this, that you really are able to really expand your horizon of what being healthy means by considering an abundance of these 5 elements, and start looking at the elements. Stop looking at the calories in food that don't exist. We can't touch them, feel them, hear them, smell them, nor taste them. But we can with all the elements. So thanks for everybody for tuning in today. And please know that if you're ill and you think there's no hope, or you said you've tried everything, I hear this all the time, I've tried everything. You know what could be missing for you is actually working with somebody who really works with all these elements. You can work with an Ayurvedic doctor. You can work with a Chinese medicine doctor. You can work with one of us. You can work with people who understand the elements and who really work only according to it. It's very interesting because once you start learning about the elements and you start applying them, what I find is fascinating is that you become much more centered in your life, and you become more balanced, and you do not feel anymore that something is missing in your life. Which is why I think when Herb started eating more fruits, this is the quickest and easiest way of incorporating all of the elements. The quickest and easiest. And I can assure you that for people in New York City who try to go this route, it's much harder for them because the elements are so missing. The other elements are so missing. And that is why we do retreats. So people can come and immerse themselves both with the food and movement-wise. Also, when I teach movement, I incorporate the elements as well in the movements. In everything in our lives, we're affected by the elements. So think about that. Do some research on it. Share this with other people who you know are ill or out of sorts, especially people who have addictions or feeling despondent and despaired and thinking that, well, I've done everything and I don't know what else to do. No, they've not done everything. I'd suggest going to India, maybe going to an ashram there, studying the elements and eating all the fruit that you pot. And India has the most incredible fruits. Oh my gosh. Japan has the most delicious mango, but it's over $1,000 for one mango. So, and it's well worth it if you have the little more than $1,000 to spare for that mango. So everyone, there is hope. You're not just thrown here willy-nilly on this earth to live by yourself. We've got all of the elements supporting you. They're there for you to experiment with and to use, and also to rejoice in them and enjoy them for your own health and healing. That's what being healthy is, knowing the truth about who you are and the fact that you're so supported. The entire universe is constantly working on your behalf to give you all of these elements, but if you're not open to receiving them, there's nothing more that can be done on the part of the universe. You have to open up, and that's the point of this live stream, is to teach you all these things that you will do not hear in mainstream media nor mainstream medicine. So thank you for coming, everyone. Thanks to my co-hosts. And we'll see you back next week for water. Really important. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.